My phone buzzed on the nightstand, the harsh blue light cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. Sergeant Miller's name flashed on the screen. A pit formed in my stomach. Nothing good ever came from Miller calling this early, especially not on a Saturday. I answered, my voice groggy. Miller? What's going on? Hey, Evans. We need you down at the old Henderson place. Something's off. His voice was strained, a stark contrast to his usual gruff demeanor. The Henderson place. An abandoned farmhouse that had loomed on the outskirts of Harmony Creek since I was a kid. Local legend whispered of a family who vanished overnight, leaving behind a house choked with dust and secrets. Now, it seemed, those secrets were finally surfacing. Throwing on clothes that wouldn't snag on anything lurking in the shadows, I drove the familiar route to the farm. Dawn was just starting to peek over the horizon, casting an eerie orange glow over the desolate landscape. As I pulled up, I saw Miller and a couple of other officers standing outside the dilapidated porch, their faces etched with a mixture of apprehension and confusion. What is it? I asked, stepping out of the car. Miller gestured towards the front door, now hanging crooked on its hinges. We got a call from a farmer who saw lights flickering there last night. Broke the door down and found this. He led me inside, the air thick with the smell of dust and decay. The furniture was overturned, as if someone had ransacked the place in a hurry. But what truly sent shivers down my spine were the symbols scrawled on the walls in a strange, swirling script. They weren't graffiti, they were deliberate, drawn with a practiced hand. Been here before? I asked Miller, my voice barely above a whisper. He shook his head. Never seen anything like it. Called in a specialist, but she's not due for another hour. We spent the next hour documenting the scene, the eerie symbols gnawing at my curiosity. Just as the first tendrils of sunlight began to creep through the broken windows, a sleek black SUV pulled up in the driveway. Out stepped Dr. Anya Sharma, our resident SCP specialist. Dr. Sharma was a walking enigma. Young, brilliant, and with eyes that held an unsettling depth of knowledge. She scanned the scene with a practiced eye, a frown etching itself onto her forehead as she saw the symbols. These markings, she muttered, tracing one with a gloved finger. They're similar to what we recovered from Sector -. My blood ran cold. Sector was a black hole, a place where the Foundation kept its most dangerous anomalies. Now, those same symbols were here, in the heart of rural Harmony Creek. Dr. Sharma spent the next few hours scouring the house, muttering cryptic phrases under her breath. Finally, she led us to the basement, a dark, cobweb-strewn space that reeked of damp earth. There, in the center of the room, was a circular stone plinth. Etched into its surface were the same symbols from the walls, glowing faintly in the dim light. This, Dr. Sharma said, her voice tight with barely suppressed excitement. This is an activation point. Activation point. My mind raced. Activation point for what? A portal to another dimension? A weapon of mass destruction? My pulse hammered in my ears. What does it do? I asked, my voice barely a squeak. Dr. Sharma shook her head, a grim smile playing on her lips. That's what we're about to find out. Dr. Sharma's words hung heavy in the damp air, a weight that settled like ice in my gut. The basement felt colder, the shadows deeper. Her excitement, a stark contrast to the growing dread coiling around my heart, sent a tremor through me. Finding a potential Foundation anomaly in a sleepy town like Harmony Creek was bad enough, but an activation point? That was a whole different level of terrifying. We can't leave this here, Miller stated, his voice gruff yet laced with a tremor of fear. Think of what could happen. Dr. Sharma nodded, her eyes gleaming with a manic glint. We can't leave it, but we also can't activate it blindly. I need to run diagnostics, analyze the symbols. Her voice trailed off as she knelt beside the plinth, tracing the glowing script with a gloved finger. While Dr. Sharma delved into her portable lab kit, pulling out strange scanners and devices I wouldn't have recognized even in a science fiction movie, a knot of unease tightened in my stomach. The air in the basement crackled with a static energy, a faint hum vibrating through the floor. Dr. Sharma, I began, my voice barely above a whisper. What if it's dangerous? What if activating it unleashes something we can't contain? She glanced at me, her eyes holding a spark of defiance. That's always the risk when dealing with anomalies, Agent Evans. But the potential rewards are just as high. Think of the scientific breakthroughs, the advancement in technology. I wasn't convinced. Breakthroughs or nightmares, the thought of tampering with something beyond our comprehension left me cold. But before I could voice my apprehension, a deafening crack resonated through the basement, followed by a blinding flash of light. We stumbled back, blinded and disoriented. My ears rang with a persistent whine. When the light subsided, I squinted through the dust motes swirling in the air. The plinth was gone. In its place, a swirling vortex of shimmering energy pulsed in the center of the room. It pulsed with an otherworldly light, the edges shimmering like a mirage in the desert heat. Dr. Sharma, her face a mask of awestruck horror, stared at the vortex, her scientific detachment gone. A guttural growl, low and primal, echoed from the swirling energy. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. Panic surged through me, a primal scream clawing its way up my throat. This wasn't a scientific breakthrough, this was a doorway to something monstrous. My gaze darted to Miller, who stood frozen, his hand instinctively going for the pistol at his hip. We need to shut it down. I yelled over the pulsing hum emanating from the vortex. We don't know how. Doctor. Sharma shot back, her voice laced with desperation. This isn't in the protocols. Just then, a shadowy tentacle, thick and inky black, lashed out from the vortex, wrapping itself around Dr. Sharma's outstretched arm. A shriek tore from her throat as she was yanked towards the swirling energy. Reacting on pure instinct, I lunged forward, grabbing her hand with all the strength I could muster. The force of the pull was immense, threatening to rip me from the ground. Miller, snapping out of his stupor, grabbed my waist, adding weight to my hold. We locked eyes, a silent understanding passing between us. This was bigger than protocol, bigger than fear. It was about survival. With a combined grunt, we managed to pull Dr. Sharma back from the grasping tentacle. But the victory was short-lived. The vortex writhed, the edges shimmering with malevolent energy. More tentacles lashed out, whipping through the air with inhuman speed. We dodged, barely escaping a gruesome fate. The basement had become a chaotic dance of survival. Dr. Sharma, her initial excitement replaced by a chilling realization, barked orders. There must be a way to deactivate it. Look for inscriptions, symbols. We scrambled around the basement, desperately searching for clues amidst the dust and debris. Then, in a corner obscured by cobwebs, I spotted it, another set of symbols etched onto the stone wall. They seemed different from the activation sequence, dimmer, but with a sense of finality. Pointing towards them, I yelled over the growing chaos, Dr. Sharma! Look! Hope flickered in her eyes. She rushed over, scrambling over debris to reach the inscription. She scanned it with a handheld device, her face contorted in concentration. The pulsing of the vortex intensified, the room filling with an unbearable pressure. I felt the floor beneath my feet begin to vibrate. This couldn't hold for much longer. My lungs burned from the stale air thick with dust and an indescribable pressure. Dr. Sharma's brow furrowed in concentration as she scanned the inscription again and again. The guttural growls from the vortex grew louder, more insistent, accompanied by the slithering of unseen creatures. With a gasp, Dr. Sharma straightened. I think I have it. She fumbled with her equipment, connecting a series of cables to her portable device. This inscription seems like a deactivation sequence, but it requires a significant energy source. Her eyes darted towards her abandoned equipment near the plinth. I need the power core from my analyzer. Miller, ever the pragmatist, roared. There's no time for that. We get out of here. He grabbed my arm, pulling me towards the stairs. Dr. Sharma shook her head, her voice resolute despite the fear in her eyes. No. We can't leave this open. This could unleash something we can't control. She sprinted towards the plinth, dodging a tentacle that lashed out from the vortex. Seeing her determination, I knew I couldn't leave her. With a desperate glance at Miller, I yelled, "Cover her!" He nodded grimly, taking aim at the vortex with his pistol, firing shots that seemed to have little effect on the shimmering energy. I charged after Dr. Sharma, the air crackling around us. Together, we reached the plinth, debris crunching under our feet. She ripped the power core from her analyzer, a desperate act that left the machine sparking uselessly. With trembling hands, she connected the core to her portable device. "Hold on!" she screamed as she activated the device. The air shimmered, a surge of energy crackling between the device and the inscription on the wall. The vortex pulsed violently, the growls morphing into ear-splitting shrieks. The room shook with an intensity that threatened to collapse the entire house. Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, the light from the vortex began to recede. The swirling energy contracted, shrinking inward until it formed a blinding pinprick of light that vanished with a final, deafening pop. Silence descended, heavy and oppressive. We stood there, panting, bathed in the faint light filtering through the basement window. The air, though still thick with dust, no longer pulsed with an unnatural energy. The only sound was the distant wail of an ambulance siren, likely responding to Miller's emergency call before things went south. Dr. Sharma slumped against the wall, her face pale but a small, relieved smile playing on her lips. I helped her up, my own body shaking from the adrenaline rush. Miller lowered his weapon, a grim expression on his face. "We did it," I whispered, the words tasting strange on my tongue. "For now, Dr. Sharma corrected, her voice raspy. "We don't know what other surprises might be lurking out there." Her words hung heavy in the air, a sobering reminder of the unseen threats that existed beyond the veil of normality. The basement of the Henderson place might be secure, but the battle lines for a war we barely understood had just been drawn. As we emerged from the house, the rising sun painting the sky a vibrant orange, I knew this was just the beginning. Harmony Creek seemed peaceful, bathed in the golden morning light, but the memory of the swirling vortex and the monstrous entities it held lingered, a chilling reminder of the darkness that threatened to consume us all.